Hey everyone, Theo here. Today I'm reviewing the Epomaker RT100 wireless mechanical keyboard from the perspective of a visual content creator, someone who uses Windows and Mac OS and uses a lot of keyboard shortcuts. Now this keyboard also supports macros, and I will show you how to create those macros and assign them to the keyboard in this review. This keyboard is a review sample provided by Epomaker, and this keyboard comes with the Epomaker Seasalt silent switches. And the price for this is US $116. Let me give you the bottom line up front. This is a beautiful keyboard with solid build quality, and the typing experience for me is so satisfying because I love how quiet these switches are. This keyboard actually comes with a mini display that can show you the date, time, battery life, wireless connection, temperature, CPU load, and an animated GIF or an image. But there are several issues with this display, which I will cover later. This keyboard can be paired with 3 devices using Bluetooth, and you can switch between the devices very easily using the keyboard shortcut function Q, W, E. And this keyboard also supports 2.4 GHz wireless connection with the USB-A receiver that's included. And when you switch between the connection, you can see the connection status on the mini display. There is a knob or dial at the corner which you can use for volume control, play and pause. The keyboard layout is good, and you can switch between Windows and Mac OS keyboard layout using this toggle at the corner. One downside for Mac OS users is when you switch the keyboard layout to Mac, this button is a control instead of an option like what you can find on a Mac keyboard. And if you use the driver to switch this to option and you switch back to the Windows keyboard layout, that button will be an alternate instead of control. The keyboard lighting is beautiful, and there are 22 effects to choose from. Overall, I really enjoy using this keyboard. The main usability issue I have is just this right side control button, which doesn't work with Mac OS, but this works fine with Windows. Alright, and let's take a look at the items included inside the box, which I have already unpacked. So other than the keyboard, there is this USB-C to USB-A cable, the mini display, the keycap remover, quick start guide, and a user manual for the mini display. This USB-C to A cable is 1.8 meters long, and it's quite thick. So there is this strap that holds the cable together, and the quality looks good. This is not your generic USB cable, and this is the other end. The cable will go here, which is just behind the delete key, and you can use your finger to feel this area easily because that's quite a big cut out. This is the mini display. The screen size is 1¼ inches. It's 2.5 by 2.5 centimeters. This is made with plastic, and the USB-C connector beneath is exposed. At the top left is a removable cover, and this is where you can find the USB-A wireless receiver, and that's the USB-C connector for the mini display. So to connect this, just make sure the USB connector goes into the port and push it. One huge downside to this design is there is nothing beneath to support the mini display. So this is not very secure, and it is possible to knock the mini display out of its position, or if you hit it at the wrong angle, the USB-C connector may break. And if you want to use the mini display, you will have to find some other place to store the USB-A receiver and this cover. Design of this keyboard is beautiful, and this keyboard is only available in this color, which uses a warm color palette. The typeface for the keys look nice, and the characters are not transparent, so the light will not shine through the characters. Let me just turn off the lights. This keyboard is compatible with Windows, Mac OS, and Android. So that's Control, Win key, and alternate. With Mac OS, this is Command, Option, Control. With Android, this is the Android button. This keyboard is gasket mounted, and the weight is 1.35 kg. It's heavier compared to low-profile keyboards, but not that heavy for a mechanical keyboard like this. The build quality is very solid with very little flex, And when you try to flex this, there is no squeaky sound at all. On the side here, you can see the indent that slowly fades away at the bottom. The side profile looks good too. There are some curves here and also at the bottom. This keyboard is higher than the low profile keyboard that I use, but I'm still able to type comfortably on this keyboard without having to use a wrist rest. The back of the keyboard looks good. There are indents on the side which allows you to lift the keyboard easily, and there are more curves here and here. There are 5 rubber feet with very good grip on the table, and these are the fold-out feet. There is rubber or silicone padding for the fold-out feet as well. So this keyboard can be deployed at 3 heights or 3 angles. At the top right of the keyboard, you can find the switches for on and off, Mac and Windows keyboard layout. That's the knob for volume control, pause and play. The 4 switches you can choose from are Epomaker Sea Salt Silent Switch, Gateron Pro Yellow, Epomaker Flamengo Switch, Epomaker Bagariga Switch. So they have different activation force and different sounds. So you have to do some research to find out which one you prefer. This review sample comes with the Epomaker Sea Salt Silent Switch, which I love because this is so quiet. And this is very suitable for use in quiet environment. The tactile typing experience is quite satisfying for me. Let's look at the layout for the keys. So as someone who's into graphic design, edits photos and videos on both Windows and Mac OS and uses a lot of keyboard shortcuts, this keyboard has almost all the keys that I need. There are the function keys from F1 to F12, and there are some pre-programmed function shortcuts which you can activate by pressing the function button. All the shortcuts are actually listed in the manual here and also on the Epomaker website. A numpad is a must-have for me since I work with numbers often. The arrow keys are full height and they extend to the top beside the right shift button and to the right side here beside this 0 button, which is half the normal width. The gap between the keys here is crucial because it prevents you from hitting the wrong keys accidentally. For keyboards without this gap, I always hit the up arrow by mistake when I want to hit the shift key, and I always hit the right arrow by mistake when I want to hit the 0 key. So this gap is an effective design. And here you can see the light indicators for the numpad, the caps lock, the Win key lock, and the battery charging. When the battery life is low, like 20%, you will see a flashing red light here. By the way, the light for the number lock currently works only with Windows but not for Mac OS. The keys for delete, page up and down are up here, and I was able to get used to them very quickly. The keys for home, print screen, and screen lock and pause and insert are on the number pad, and you have to access them with the function key shortcuts. The function button is located here, and you can use it with other keys for shortcuts such as function Q, W, E for Bluetooth pairing or connection. Function R will connect to the 2.4 GHz wireless receiver. There is function backspace to check the battery life, and right now it's at 60% because I can see the light beneath the number 6. There is function up and down to adjust the brightness of the lights, and function left and right to adjust the speed of the lighting effects. For Mac users, there may be an issue. If you're using this keyboard with the Windows keyboard layout, the modifier keys here are alternate function control. When you switch to the Mac keyboard layout, the keys become command function control. If you look at the Apple keyboard, the key on the extreme right is an option. Logitech keyboards also use control for Windows and option for Mac keyboard layouts. It is possible to use the driver to change this to option, but when you switch back to Windows keyboard layout, that key will be an alternate instead of control. At the time of making this video, it doesn't seem possible to have the driver or firmware automatically switch this to option when you're using the Mac keyboard layout and switch it back to control when you're using the Windows keyboard layout. So hopefully Epomaker can release a driver or firmware to update this Mac keyboard layout issue. This keyboard works great with Android as well, or at least with this Samsung tablet that I have here. So when you switch the keyboard layout to Windows, this button is actually the Android button. So you can press this button with D to go to the desktop, with P to call up the music app, with B to call up the browser. So the Android keyboard shortcuts work with this keyboard too. Let's look at the keyboard lighting effects. The LED lights are south-facing, which means it's easier for you to see the lights. And the glow of the lights look good between the keys. If you use the driver to switch or select the lighting effects, you get 22 effects. If you use the keyboard shortcuts, you get only 19. So to switch between the different lighting effects, you can press function, delete. The delete button is above the number lock key. And if you want to use the monochrome color instead of the colorful versions, you can use function pitch up. And you can switch between different colors using function pitch up as well. So this is yellow, yellow-green, green, blue, darker blue, and purple. To turn off the lights, you can press function pitch down and function pitch down again to turn it on. So let's take a look at the different lighting effects. You can adjust the speed by pressing function left arrow. So this is much slower. Okay, this is the colorful mode. So this is effect number 1. I'm not going to count all the effects, I'm just going to run through them one by one. This is the static mode, the static lights, pulsing or glowing. This is the rainbow pattern. Okay. This looks like splatter. This looks like random. This is for individual keys. So there are many lighting effects you can choose from. I'm pretty sure you can find one that you like. This one is quite nice. And we are back to static. Let's talk about this mini display. So on the mini display, you can see the time, the date, the battery life, wireless connection, temperature, CPU load, and an image or GIF that you insert here. The problem with this mini display is it just blacked out again. So when the screen blacks out, I can use the function shortcuts to adjust the keyboard lighting to wake the display again. And you can see the different types of connection when you're switching between them. So that's actually quite helpful, and that's the most helpful thing about this display, because the time and date are sometimes wrong. Because when you power off the keyboard, it seems like the clock is powered off as well. So when you wake the keyboard again, the time may be from a few hours or from the previous day. So that's not accurate. The battery life indicator is accurate. That's the wireless connection, which is accurate. The temperature and CPU load, for some reason, doesn't work for me and for other reviewers on YouTube. So the only thing that's useful about this display for me is I get to see which connection I'm switching to very clearly. Even if you do not use the mini display, you will still be able to see which connection you are using from the lights beneath this 4 keys. The Bluetooth reconnection speed is fast. Let me show you how fast by switching to another connection and switching back. That's how fast it is. Let's see what you can do with the driver. This tablet, by the way, is the Huion Canvas Studio 16 that I just reviewed. The version for the Mac and Windows drivers that I have tested is version 1.2.65. So this is where you can customize the keys for the keyboard. So if you want the enter key to be a delete key, you can just click here and enter the backspace or delete button here. You can customize up to 4 groups of shortcuts using this drop-down menu. But to switch between those groups of shortcuts, you have to come back to the menu here in the driver. To customize the function key shortcuts, you have to press this toggle here. And this will show you the keys that are customizable, which are the teal colored keys from F1 to F9. F1 to F9. The number pad 0.1379. You can assign keyboard shortcuts, macros that you have created. You can also choose from the pre-programmed media controls, including screen brightness up and down, or choose mouse buttons. Let's move to lighting. So this is where you can choose and customize the keyboard lighting. There are 22 lighting effects to choose from, and you can choose or adjust the speed of the effect, the brightness of the light, and also the direction of the light. Or you can use the keyboard shortcuts here to change the brightness or the speed or choose between the different lighting effects. Let's go to macro. If you don't know what macros are, well, a macro is a sequence of keyboard shortcuts that are run one after another, and macros are great for repetitive tasks. The gist of macro programming is you press start to record, then you enter the keyboard shortcuts in sequence and you press stop and save. This driver will record the up and down states for the key and also the time delay. And if you need to change the keys or the time delay, you can click on the button, click modify to input your own value. So that's how much control you have over macro programming, and this can be quite intimidating. But the most important thing to know is these 3 controls up here. So for loop, this is quite straightforward. I have set the macro to loop only one time when I press the keyboard shortcut. For button control on and off, it means when you press the keyboard shortcut, the macros will run forever until you press the button again. For touch repeat, it means the macros will run for as long as the button is held down until you release the button. Because time delay is not important for me, so I can actually check box this here and fix the time delay to 1 millisecond for all these keys. Let me show you the sequence of shortcuts I want to program as a macro before I show you how to program it with the driver. So this is Adobe Photoshop, and let me unlock this layer first. So what I want to do is make a selection of this book that's on the table. And I want to press Ctrl Enter to make a selection. Ctrl Shift minus to contract the selection. Press 2 for 2 pixels. Enter. Ctrl Alternate D to feather for 2 pixels. Press 2. Enter. Ctrl Shift I to reverse the selection. Ctrl X to delete away the background, and this is the sequence of shortcuts I want to program into a single button. To create a macro with the driver, first click the little icon here to create a new macro, and I'm going to set the macro to loop just one time. And the time delay is not important, so I'm going to set the time delay to a fixed 1 millisecond. And now I can start recording my macro. So the first shortcut is Ctrl Enter. Now if you enter any wrong keys here, you can press stop and clear the selection or the keys and start again. So the first shortcut is Ctrl Enter to create a selection. Control Shift minus to contract the selection by 2 pixels, enter. Control Alternate D to feather by 2 pixels, enter. Control Shift I to inverse the selection. Control X to delete the background, and that's it. Press stop and press save. Go to the main tab here, toggle this so that you can create a function shortcut. I'm going to assign this to F7, more specifically function F7. So under the macro tab here, you can select the macro that you have created. Oh, actually I should have renamed that, but let's just check or select this. So each time you update the macro, you have to come back here to assign it to the button again. So now I'm back in Photoshop and I have just drawn a pen path for this book. So now I'm going to press function F7 to run the macro. It is possible to assign the macro to just function F7, but I prefer function F7. So function F7. As you can see, the macro ran in an instant to remove the background. I have just drawn a pen path around the cat and the mice, so now I'm going to run the same macro again by pressing function F7. And again, it removed the background. So instead of pressing those keyboard shortcuts in sequence again, you can group them into a macro and assign it to a shortcut button here. So that can be quite convenient. Next, let's see how you can customize the mini display. So to show the date and time, you can click here, adjust screen and time, but as mentioned earlier, it's useless because when you power off the keyboard, the time is frozen. To insert an image or an animated GIF to the mini display, just click here, select picture, and look for the picture you want to use. The actual uploading process requires a cable connection. You cannot upload wirelessly because even with a cable connection, the transfer speed is extremely slow. So if you want to upload something more than maybe 500 kilobytes, yes, kilobytes, it's going to take a few minutes. So this is the animated GIF that I have selected that I want to upload, and after that you can click here, upload, and upload GIF. To show the temperature and CPU load, you should click something around here, but as mentioned earlier, it's not going to work, so let's just skip this. Other things you can do with the driver includes sharing your macros with other people, or you can download macros from other people, or you can share your image or animated GIF with other people. It seems like they have some cloud server thing going on for sharing. That's pretty much it for the driver. Battery capacity for this keyboard is 5000 mAh, which is on the higher side compared to other mechanical keyboards. Battery life obviously will vary depending on whether you use the lights. Based on my experience, if you use the lights at maximum brightness and you are working 8 hours a day, the battery life can last maybe 2.5 days. So for me, to make the battery life longer, I use the lights only at night. Alright, to conclude, I really enjoyed using this keyboard. It's beautiful, it's well made, the build quality is excellent. The typing experience for me is really satisfying because I love how quiet these switches are. When I first type on the keyboard, it feels like sinking into a sofa, a really soft sofa, and the sofa goes poof. That's how I felt when I used these silent switches for the first time. And the pricing of $116 is quite reasonable. I don't have any issues with the battery life. I would charge this keyboard maybe every 10 days or every 2 weeks. The mini display has limited use, but since it's included, why not just use it? If you don't use the mini display, you can probably get more battery life out of this. Alright, so this keyboard is a good one, and if you guys are interested to get this, you can visit the Epomaker online store using the link in the video description below. See you guys in the next video. Bye!